What's happening, everybody, and welcome to episode 57 of the Endless Celts Podcast. I'm delighted to be joined by Francis. How you doing, mate?
Aye, all good considering after the next result, John. As we were saying on the chat, I thought we were coming on to be all total 100% positive, but unfortunately not. But, well, like you said, there is positive to take from the night, and I'm sure we'll get stuck into them.
Yeah, absolutely. Just before we start touching on that, obviously, this is John. For those of you who were wondering who it is that's actually speaking, Stephen couldn't make it tonight. He's just recently moved into a new house, so all the best with the move, Stephen. I'm sure you'll be back next week. So let's just get into the thick of it then. Real Betis Celtic match is just finished. This is obviously recorded on the Thursday night, so by the time you listen to it on Friday afternoon, the match has been and gone, but we've just sat and watched it. Francis, what was your take initially on the actual final result?
Well, it's obviously disappointing, the final result, John. Like, it's never great to score 3 goals in any game and not even take a point for it. So for that, it's fairly negative. But I think for the first 20, 27, 28 minutes, we were absolutely dynamite, and Betis looked like they couldn't live with us and stuff. Joe Hart had a couple of big saves at important moments, but yeah, for the first, until they scored their first goal, we were flying, weren't we?
I thought we were superb the first 20-25 minutes, and I think we gave them a bit of a fright. We rocked them. I don't think they were expecting us to come out the traps the way we did.
No.
And we were creating plenty of chances. At one point it could have been 3 or 4.
Takes a better touch. He's maybe scoring that one.
That's it. So I think there's one as well where he cut it back for a Yeti, and a Yeti caught it with his heel. But again, we were flying for the first 20-25 minutes. And I think over the course of the 90, if you actually look at the performance, their goals, they scored 4, right? And we'll give them credit for the goals. I think some of them, we made a couple of defensive errors. It was silly defensive mistakes again that have cost us. But they scored 4 quick-fire goals. But by and large, the majority of the match, I felt like we were in control, especially the second half. Or the latter end of the second half anyway, and obviously pulling one back to make it 4-3. But I just gone back then. Let's just take it right back to the start, and obviously that first 25 minutes, and Ayeti, obviously the man leading the line tonight, but still Giacomakis still not up to scratch, no fit, I believe, is the reason why not only is he starting, but he's not on the bench. No strikers on the bench whatsoever. So Ayeti had to lead the line. We've been quite critical of Ayeti, especially sort of last season, where we didn't think he was sort of living up to his price tag, so to speak. But as we've said numerous times off this in our group chat and on this podcast as well, I think we believe there's a player in there. It's just he needs to get those chances, and he needs to take the chances that he's getting. And obviously with Kyogo's injury, he's come in now 2 games and he's scored 3 goals. So what was your thoughts on the first sort of 25 minutes and Ayeti's performance during that period?
I mean, the first 25 minutes surprised me, John. I like to say there was players out of necessity playing in certain positions that you weren't expecting. To be fair, I wasn't expecting us to come out flying, but maybe it's kind of the Postecoglou way to seems to be all guns blazing. But I thought Juranovic, he played left back against Rangers, but didn't seem to. He got forward, but didn't look as comfortable when he was going forward. But tonight, him and Montgomery really, they really complemented each other. I think out the left and stuff. And he was buzzing about. He's that penalty box striker, like William says it a lot, like a Gary Hooper type player. And I think the last 2 games he's shown what he can be. He was a bit starved possession in the second half, but we'll obviously get into that. But for the first 25 minutes, I thought his movement in and around the box was really good. He was offering a lot and giving guys something to aim for and stuff. And like, he doesn't. I think what lets Ayeti down a wee bit is he doesn't touch the ball a lot. But at the end of the day, I'm not caring how many times he touches the ball, as long as he scores, because I think there was a stat he touched the ball about 16 times last Sunday, but scored 2 goals. So I don't care. Like, at the end of the day, I don't care how many times a striker touches it. And he's not the same type of player as Kyogo, where he's sort of making the runs into the channels and stuff. So it's good to have different types of strikers.
Yeah.
But obviously he's maybe getting compared to like guys like Kyle going, and obviously Edward's not there, but Edward, we can't really compare him with Giakoumakis yet because we've not really seen him in a Celtic jersey. But I thought the performance by the first 25, like the only negative I could pick was Sorrow in the first 25 minutes. I don't like really battering Celtic players, but every time I'm seeing this guy now, I'm losing faith in the guy. I don't know if it's a confidence thing. I don't really see a future for the guy at Celtic. It always seems to give us energy. He can't seem to make a wee 5-10 yard pass and stuff, and he's too eager to get in the tackle. But I thought for the first 25 minutes, John, we strolled it. Cameron Carter-Vickers looks a real presence in there. Starfelt looks more comfortable in next to him and stuff, and Ralston was played okay. Wasn't one of his best performances, but he had good spells in the game. Like he was really good in the first half. Like Jota, I think, looks like a real player. But yeah, it was good for 25 minutes, John. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, mate. I think for me anyway, Ajeti, and thankfully for me anyway, he's stepped up when needed.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, like you said, with Edouard away, Griffiths isn't there. Giakoumakis is just in the door. He's not had a chance to actually play yet. So we've only really got Kyogo and Ajeti. And Kyogo is obviously going to be the number one going forward. But with his injury and Ajeti having to step in, if you were, I think when Kyogo first got injured, there was a concern for me at least that were we going to see that Ajeti? Was he going to be the guy to step up and score the goals when needed and be that guy? Because if we got the same sort of Ajeti as last season, then we could have been in a bit of trouble because we've not got any sort of like real threat up front. But I mean, he's came in, he's done the job, he's done what's asked of him. And I think he's been great the past couple of games. And long may it continue. But I think that one of the things we need to realise as well is in regards to obviously that opening 25 minutes, as we say, is where we're flying. And I don't think any of us really expected it. But as you said earlier, it's just it's Ange ball, and it's the way he wants the team to play. And I don't think teams are expecting it for us to come out the traps and press them that high at that pace right out the gate.
Especially away from home in Europe as well. You don't expect the away team to start like that.
Absolutely, and it's quite unheard of, to be honest. When you look at it, it's not something that happens very regular, and that's one other thing to take out of the game. I know a lot of people, and before we came on and we started recording, you're obviously doing your sort of check. You're going through your socials and you're seeing all the usual stuff, the usual suspects. But checking various like Celtic groups and pages and that, and there's a lot of fans who are disgruntled, and there's a lot of people being overly negative, and I don't think it's warranted personally. I mean, Francis, just when you consider the position that we're in, the injuries that we've got to the first team, the guys we're missing, the fact we're playing away from home against a top six Spanish side, and bear in mind the only teams that finished ahead of them were Atletico Madrid, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Sevilla, and Real Sociedad, who, by the way, only beat them out by a point, I believe it was.
I'm not sure.
So, I mean, you've got an argument to say they're at least one of the top 5 teams in Spain at the minute. And to go away in a European game overseas against a top 5 team in Spain is going to be a tough ask for any team. Far less us who, given if you'd says that we were going to take a defeat, albeit a defeat, but 4-3 away from home against the likes of Betis last season, you'd have took it. Because for me, it shows obviously progression. We're scoring goals, which is one of the things that we're missing. But as I say, taking that into consideration, the injuries and everything else, what do you think? Do you think the sort of negativity towards the result is warranted?
Yes and no. I can understand. I tried staying off the socials, John, because obviously this reaction video I wasn't wanting to get influenced by ones and stuff, so I was trying to kind of be at all my own thinking, if you like. So I can understand some negativity, like I touched on. You score 3 goals and you don't actually take anything from a game. It's never good. You've got to ask questions of your defence and midfield. You've got to that poor game management? Like we say, we'll probably touch on it as poor error. There is good goals in there, but it's poor errors on our part on some of them. But the positives is we kept going after, like the quickness we lost the goals. Half time kind of maybe came, not that we were under a lot of pressure by half time, but half time maybe came at a good time. We could regroup. Unfortunately, we never seemed to do that. We got battered with 2 goals straight off the bat again. But we kept on going. Naturally, obviously, Betis are going to step back a wee bit because they don't need to chase the game. But we kept going, stuck in there, kept trying to play our game. So it's positive going forward. But yeah, it's the lack of depth in the squad of duty. A lot of that due to injuries was evident when you look at the bench. The McCarthy one was more a forced thing in case the referee was a wee bit card happy, because I don't remember Sorrow actually making a bad tackle in the second half before he got subbed, but I think it was just one foul away for a red card, just a lot round the way the referee was happy to book anybody. So it was just, you looked at that bench and there was nothing we really could do. So I think in that sense, if you can look at a defeat as being positive, yeah, it was, because we could have really been turned over, especially at 4-2 and stuff. It could have been any score, but there's positives and negatives to take the game. Yeah, the positives obviously scoring, getting forward. We were breaking them down. We unfortunately never really made any clear cut chances. I feel when we went down to 4-2, where you thought we should have scored there. Like, yeah, Rogic just hit the post, but it's actually a really good strike. He's maybe cut across it too well. He's maybe could have been doing with scuffing it a wee bit, and it's not got enough. It's not got that as much swerve on it to take it towards the post. But I can't remember us really getting a clear cut chance where you thought he should have scored. We cut them open a few times, but like I say, it was nothing where I think you could lay the blame at anybody saying they missed a sitter or anything. So there is positive to take for the game, John, but also it's hard to understand the negativity when you lost 4-3.
Aye, so I would agree with you to an extent, Francis, because me personally, losing 4 goals when you're away from home isn't unheard of.
I know, but it's not great.
No, it's not great. To go 2 up and then lose 4 goals is even worse.
Yeah.
So I can see the frustration in it, but if as I said earlier, I mean, throughout the course of the 90 minutes, I still feel we were the better side. I still feel we were we had a better grip of the game. It was just a case of no creating the chances we needed or taking or converting those chances when they came. But again, and this has gone back to something you just mentioned there, which is a great segue to this point, because the depth, and this is something we touched on during the transfer window, and we still felt there was a number of different positions that still needed strengthening. The window's closed now, and we've seen today what difference it can make. Like, losing Taylor at left back has now forced us to put 3 players out with their natural position. Now, when we saw the team sheet, I think it was by and large it was the team we expected to see fielded, given what was available to us. But it was the actual lineup that surprised me personally. Now, you made a good point off this podcast, and you have made on previous podcasts though as well. But one of the things I just wanted to touch on was, and I agree with you here, because I think versatility is a great thing, and the fact we've got players who are able to move into their positions, albeit not their natural positions, but that we can sort of rotate them out of those positions, shows great versatility, and I think that's going to be beneficial for us in the long term. What did surprise me though was the worrying thing was that Taylor, it seems, is our only natural left back, because Ange clearly doesn't have confidence in Montgomery in that position, and I think that was a justified statement to make based on the fact that he moved them up onto the left wing and moved Juranovic out to right back into left back, and then moved Jota for the left wing out to the right. So you've got 3 players out of position essentially tonight as well, and being forced to make those kind of changes and that kind of rotation on the injury one player, because for me, I'd have kept Montgomery at left back, kept Jota out on the left, and moved Juranovic up onto the right wing because he's played there before as well, and he's on his favoured side. That's what I was expecting to see. So I was certainly surprised when I saw I won't go off BT Sports.
Yeah, it was at left
Oh, it was. I did take a picture of it because I couldn't believe my eyes. But if anybody's seen it, it was the play. I might actually just pull the photo up. What I need to do just for a laugh. Let's just pull this up. But I couldn't believe it. It was honestly ridiculous. But the formation that they had was Hart and goal, thankfully. But they had Starfelt out at right back, Carter Vickers.
I never even noticed that.
Aye, so BT had Starfelt out at right back, Carter Vickers centre right, Juranovic centre left, Ralston on the left back, Turnbull on the left, Rogic in the middle, Sorrow on the right, and then Ayeti out on the left wing, Jota up front, and Montgomery on the right wing.
Man. I'm just looking at that. That's horrendous. I never noticed it. Is that bad?
It was shock. I see when I seen it, I was like, please tell me this isn't. I couldn't believe it, but thankfully that wasn't the case. And as I said, I mean, taking everything into consideration, and again, for me, just going back to the original point, the negativity for me is unwarranted. I understand frustration at losing 4 goals, especially being 2-0 up, and especially losing them in quick succession, the way we did. But I think overall, if you're looking at the bigger picture, based on everything that's happening, the rebuild, the position we were in at the end of last season, even at the start of this season, to go, and with the injuries we've got, to go away to a top 5, top 6 team in Spain in European competition, and take 3 goals off them, with the team in rotation the way it is and being as threadbare as it is something to actually take as a large positive. And for me, I think that the result itself was a decent result for us, because as I said, I don't think any of us really expected to go away to any of these games at this stage and take 3 points off all these teams, especially no Betis. Betis was obviously one of the strongest teams in the group, despite being in pot 3. And I think that if you'd been offered a draw, you would attain it. I don't think any of us were expecting to go here and win. So I think that the result, it doesn't look great. Losing 4 goals is never great, but it's just one of those things. You mentioned Sorrow though, and I think that's a valid point. I want to just touch on Sorrow's performance, and I want to see what you think of this, because obviously last season when Sorrow came in, Francis, we were looking at Sorrow and Turnbull when they came into the side as maybe being bright lights in an otherwise dark season, right? We saw there was potential in Sorrow. He seemed to be hungry. He was doing things right. He's come in this season. He does seem overeager. He's making rash challenges. His passes aren't connecting the same. Do you think this is a case of maybe is it a case of he's always kind of been like that, but we didn't see it because last season was so dire? And this season, obviously, we're playing differently. We're playing better, and he's just not up to par? Or do you think it's maybe just a confidence thing, as you mentioned earlier, and there is still a player in there?
I actually never looked upon it as maybe how you've just touched on there. I think that's maybe a good point, how we were that bad last season. We clung on to anything. So it could be that he just, I'm not like saying he played bad last season, because he did actually play good, but maybe we made more of it because of how bad we were.
Yeah.
But I do think it's a confidence thing a bit as well. You've seen when he come, obviously, I don't want a player to look happy when he's coming off, and he did look really disappointed when he came off, and I think some of that probably is like, obviously we don't know Sorrel, but he's a professional. He'll know he's not played well, and I think his image coming off showed that, and he's probably frustrated because he knows he's not a first team pick. He's getting a chance out of necessity, and he's no grabbed it, and there probably is frustration in that, and that maybe be a wee bit why he goes into, he was lunging into tackles and that, but it is kind of like his game to lunge into tackles. I mean, I've said that before, he's like, when you buy Canty off Wish, he's not good, but it's just, like, I don't really want to batter a player, but I don't know if there is I just can't see where Sorrel fits into the Celtic team now, but it could, it maybe is a lot of it down to confidence, or it could be like you say, John, just the fact that we weren't great last season. He was a wee shining light at the time, and because he was a bundle of energy, he had that bright smile on his face and stuff. So it's maybe it is a confidence thing in that, and he just needs to get feel happy again. But yeah, it's it's definitely not got to be a first pick anytime soon. I don't think if he keeps performing this way.
Yeah. I mean, I would tend to agree with you. I mean, like you say, he kind of looked a bit dejected when I mean, granted, his team were doing 4-2. I don't think you're going to come off with any sort of semblance of smile or anything like that unless you're actually winning the game comfortably and you've had a good game, as you said. It's funny that you mentioned no way to batter players, but then referred to him as buying Carty halfway.
I know, absolute backhanded compliment, eh?
I know, but I mean, yeah, you're right to an extent because he's kind of he has underperformed, and like you says, the earlier challenge he got in the game of the day set himself up, and I mean there was during that after we went up 2-0, the match kind of went a wee bit chaotic, and it was getting a bit messy, and you were worried then that is this going to be a situation where Sorrow's then going to get himself red carded and we're going to be doing to 10 men, which obviously we didn't want to see, and thankfully that didn't happen. But it's always a concern, especially with the likes of Sorrow, because like you say, he can be brash and a wee bit over eager when he gets challenges. Other players that stood, I mean, Jota for me was probably the best player on the park in the Celtic jersey tonight. I mean, I thought everything was coming through him. I thought him and Ralston really linked up well. I think Ralston had another good game. He busted his gut for 90 minutes again. And he's proved that he deserves a place in that team for me. And the obviously Rogic had a fantastic game, and watching him with the ball at his feet sometimes is absolute magic. Was there any players that stood out for yourself, Francis, or do you have a particular man of the match in the Celtic top?
I would go with Rogic as man of the match. Man of the match. I don't even know what I said there. I would go with Rogic personally for myself. I thought he had good moments in the game where it was Rogic where he couldn't get the ball off him. He was taking the ball in and just turning quick and getting away from boys and that. I thought him and Tumble had a decent enough game. He looked better in there, and I think, although as we said, Sorrow didn't have a great game, I think the reassurance of Sorrow and McCarthy helped guys like Tumble and Rogic, and that sounds daft when you consider Sorrow and McCarthy have came in instead of McGregor, but McGregor's more a forward-thinking player, and it doesn't really give Rogic and Tumble the sort of insurance of a defensive sort of minded player behind them. So I think Rogic benefited for that tonight. Jota, I wouldn't argue against that. I thought everything good was coming through him. A lot of good was coming through him anyway. And on the right, I thought he tired near the end. You could see he was picking up, and I wouldn't say he was reluctant to go by, but it wasn't his first thought to try and run the ball. He was looking for Ralston, who was, as he has been forever in his Celtic career, to be fair to him, he's been a willing runner. He runs all day.
Definitely.
To be fair, this season he's actually performed really well. I think Ralston had some shaky moments tonight, but again, it's one of the ones I've got to cut some slack because he puts in 100% all the time. So there was, Rogic for me, man of the match. Jota, I think first time I actually properly seen him over the 90 minutes was really good. Juranovic again, I was impressed with. I think we'll obviously see better off him when he plays at right mid. Montgomery, I think didn't really. I think that he struggled a bit. I think out in the left, and I think that was good in a sense that we didn't have him at left back because Joachim, even though he was 40, absolutely ran for the full 50 minutes he was on, and that could have done Montgomery's confidence if he was playing at left back and that and got done off a 40-year-old at the end of the day. Like, if you put it like that, he's been done off a 40-year-old. But it's Joachim, the guy's a fantastic player. He has been for all his career. And so I understood Montgomery playing up there because Juranovic, I think, defensively was more assured. So I think that was maybe good management for Ange playing Montgomery, but he struggled to really influence the game out there. But yeah, there was good moments, as I say. The two centre halves look like they could build a partnership, but you've obviously got Julian to come back into that. So there was positive performances out there. Guys looked confident enough on the ball, John. So it was, but Rogic, it was good to see the way Rogic played tonight.
Nah, definitely. I mean, I don't think many people could argue with Rogic either. But like he says, watching him with the ball at his feet sometimes is just magic to see the stuff he could do with the ball at his feet, especially for a guy his size. He just dances round players, and the ball just seems to glue at his feet sometimes, and you wonder how the hell he managed to get through players he did. A couple of times in the night he managed to keep the ball at his feet, and you're like, how? But again, it just shows you the sort of fight and the dig he's got, and the sort of he was keen to sort of just, there was none of this just falling to the ground and rolling about. He was wanting to get back on his feet and try and push things forward and create chances. So I thought he had a fantastic game. You're right, Juranovic, albeit out of position on the left, had a decent game as well. Another thing, a couple of guys I want to touch on, and you mentioned this earlier as well, was Carter Vickers and Starfelt, that centre pairing. Now, you mentioned Julian obviously coming back and what his position within the team is going to be. As it stands at the minute, it looks like the central defensive pairing until Julian is back and he's challenging for that place is going to be Carter Vickers and Starfelt. Few years on this podcast, I've been very critical of Starfelt. I've tried to defend him and just telling him give him time so he can settle and find his feet. He seems for me to be doing that with each game now. I thought he looked more assured again today, and you're certainly starting to see what he's capable of defensively. It was still a big ask against a team like Betis tonight, but funnily enough, it's in the bigger games of late, the derby game and this game, where we've seen some of the best performances in him. So, what you mentioned it briefly. What do you think Julian is going to fit into this side when he's back in terms of that central defensive? And bearing in mind as well, you've got young Welsh on the bench who's never put a foot wrong, exactly. And I mean, it's a shame even seeing the fact that he's getting hooked, considering he's been solid for us throughout all last season as well, and coming into the start of this season. So, I mean, I think it's great that we've got now potentially 4 that you could play centre defence, that you could potentially say it's going to be a strong pair regardless. Aye. But what do you see as Julian's role when he gets back?
Well, if I had to answer that, then I would say it would be Carter, Vickers and Julian. But that's not to have a go at Starfelt, because I agree, since Carter Vickers has came in, well, just like the last 2 games, he's definitely looked a better player. He looks more assured. He doesn't look as nervous on the ball. Could be confidence. He's just finally getting round to sort of adapting to the style of playing, things like that. And he's playing with a guy that maybe he's got a better connection with. Just could be one of the ones he didn't have a good relationship with Welsh in the sense of playing style and stuff. So it's I think Julian would play in front of Starfelt, but I can't. The way Starfelt's playing, it's the two, him and Cameron Carter Vickers look really good together. And like you say, it's a bit unfair in Welsh that we're maybe looking at him as a 4th choice centre half, really. But then to flip that, not that Julian was a Postecoglou signing, but I understand why Welsh is not playing, because the 2 he's playing now are the manager signing. So, and Starfelt was a big money signing, so you kind of expect the manager to stick by them, because he's not want to get criticised and stuff for bringing in a £4.5 million striker, and one of the youth players is keeping them out. So I understand that centre half partnership, but yeah, I think if it's me, I think Carlton Vickers plays with Julian. But the only thing that worries me with our centre halves, as much as 4 of them look like they'll be very able coming in, it's just we really have a lack of pace in centre halves, because Carlton Vickers doesn't look the fastest either. I just don't think we're that fast in the central defensive position.
No, I would certainly agree with that. I mean, there was a couple of moments tonight where you seen the Vickers lack pace, but again, I don't know too much about Vickers in terms of the other games. He's obviously quite highly regarded. The fact he was even at Tottenham, the fact that Bournemouth, he had a fantastic season with him by all accounts. I've seen fans screaming for him to get him signed on a permanent basis. And I mean, he's clearly a very capable defender. He's a big laddie. He's very strong. He's
looks a good present. But
I mean, he's been out for a wee while, and this was one of the things that a lot of folk were maybe saying maybe he's not going to get rushed into the team. And this might be a thing as well. He's no, maybe he's not fully up to scratch fitness wise or anything, something like that. Maybe that's why he's not kind of up to pace yet or up to speed, so to speak. So I guess it remains to be seen. But there was a couple of moments tonight where he got turned, and you were like, pace is definitely an issue, especially if we're going to be playing that high press. You're going to need your central defensive parent to get back as quickly as possible. So it's definitely going to be a useful asset there. But I agree with you entirely. I think that the thought of having a guy like Julian back and Carter Vickers in the central defensive pairing, that sounds like the best option. And again, no disrespect to Starfelt, because I think he is coming into his game, and I've defended him on recent podcasts if he's listened. So I would agree that Julian still has a place as a starter going forward. I think, we've covered pretty much everything about the game, really. We've touched on everything. Just looking at the other game as well, obviously Leverkusen beat Ferencváros 2-1. So we're actually sitting third in the group. So, you've got these other games coming up, and based on the away performance we had today, and again, we've probably lost to the strongest team in the league, but we've managed to score 3 away from home. Do you see us getting any results against the likes of Ferencváros away or a Leverkusen away?
I think you've got to be confident against Ferencváros away. I think that is the potential game to pick up the points that maybe sees you out the group, because you've also got to it doesn't matter what European competition you're in, but you look at your 3 home games and say, ideally we win all them, but you win 2 and maybe draw 1 if you like. But you always obviously look at a game and you might pick something up away from home, and I think Ferencváros have got to look at that game and look to take 6 points off the two teams, in the both legs. But yeah, I would be confident at home against the 3 teams after last night's performance, and you've got to hope, touch wood.
I like how you said last night, because you're talking like it's Friday.
Oh, by the way, that was totally unintentional, John.
Autopilot.
Aye. So, what was I saying there? Touch wood, you don't get any injuries. I think I'd be confident going into the Leverkusen game next week that you get a win and stuff, and you might have guys like, I don't know if your Forrest is maybe got to be back. You might have a wee bit more options to pick from going forward in these games. So, yeah, I would look at the Ferencváros away game to pick up 3 points there, and as I say, pick up 6 points against them. I think if we've any chance of progressing the group, we need to pick 6 points up against them, and ideally, if you win your other 2 home games, Bayer Leverkusen can turn us over for all I care. Because I think if you've got 12 points, surely you go through.
Yeah. No, I would agree with you. I think exactly as you say, Ferencváros is a game we should be looking to take full 6 points home. Victories home and away. I'm confident based on tonight's performance, we've got it in us to take points at home against Betis and Leverkusen. And it remains to be seen whether and this is no disrespectful to Leverkusen, and I'm not trying to say that we are outstanding by any means, but they did struggle against Ferencváros today, so it's possible they might be there for the taking as well, but I guess all that remains to be seen. And like you say, if we start getting players back and we start strengthening the team, and we've got a wee bit more position and depth, and we've got actual substitutes we can make, because we noticed tonight Ange made 1. Was it the one actually?
Aye, just the one. Carfy for Sorrow.
Carfy for Sorrow. Aye. So it just shows you that even like having players back is definitely going to be beneficial to us going forward. So that's that for the sort of Europa League game, which is going to be the crux of this sort of podcast, because like I said, it's just a sort of reaction after that. But obviously we've got back to business as usual this weekend against Livingston. What just quickly, what do you think's about the game coming up this weekend? Where do you see us sort of saying? What's your opinion?
As a game we really should be winning. No disrespect to Livingston, but you really should be going to Livingston winning. But it's predominantly a tricky game, especially in the past for us. We've struggled going there, and obviously the plastic pitch plays a big factor in that. I believe it's a wee bit of a leveler for teams like your Livingstons. But I think if Say if we've got aspirations for this league title, we need to go and win games like this off the back of on the face of it, a poor result in Europe. You've got to then pick yourself back up straight away and go to a difficult away game and win. But I'm confident we'll win. Maybe not the sort of a big dominant display and stuff, but I'm confident we'll win the game, John.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that. I mean, they've not had a great start to this season at all. I think they've just lost 4 on the bounce as well. And then obviously they have to host us come Sunday. And like you said, given the way we're playing, I think there's certainly enough about us to put a few by them potentially. What do you think the starting lineup's going to look like? Do you think it's going to be much the same as the night, or do you think things are going to be different? Obviously, it's hard to tell, but what do you think?
Yes, like you said, John, it's hard to tell. A lot of that's obviously got to, without pointing the obvious out, it's got to depend on injuries, isn't it? But I think going by what I know, and I would have to say it'd be, I think the only difference I think I would have come to Sundays, unfortunately, Sorrow out the team for McCarthy. If McCarthy's a wee bit fitter, but he may play Sorrow because I don't know. Obviously, McCarthy's struggled maybe to get up to pace, and it's not great to try and get a guy up to pace on one of his plastic pitches, so he might just stick with the same team as tonight. I can't see many changes, just more down to personnel, John, that's possibly available. I don't know where we are with some of the injuries that could come back. Yeah. So I think it'll be McCarthy maybe for Sorrow if there's any change to the team.
That's a good shout. I think that hopefully, I mean, I'd be interested to know what the issue with Taylor is in this shoulder. Mm-hmm. And what's the cause of that? How to what extent is it damaged? Because I mean, if you're I see it, as I've said before, I'm a big fan of like sort of basketball, and these guys are playing 80 odd games a season, 3 or 4 games a week, and you're looking at some of them, and they get, obviously it's very heavily based on using your hands and your upper body, and it's very strenuous on your legs as well. So is there no something there to like strap them up, or like using all that or that tape and stuff like that?
Tape,
like,
you see, aye.
And braces and stuff like that, because it'd be interesting to know the extent of that, because it's like, as I say, the night losing Taylor, and I've been critical of Taylor. I don't think he should be the first. We should have strengthened that position, and we should have got somebody in. We had Scales there on the bench. I know he can play there.
He maybe could play on Sunday. I forgot about him.
But again, it just shows you what the lack of depth in that one player. Essentially, I mean, by all accounts, Abada, no being there and stuff, you've still got guys who can step into that position. But that left back position caused us to move 3 players out of position to accommodate it. So it's a difficult one, and it would just be interesting to see how Taylor's injury is going to affect him as well going on, because he was only just back
after doing the same with Scotland.
Yeah, it's crazy, but I think it's by and large it's going to be a similar lineup. What about the score result? What do you think the score's going to be?
I think 2-0, John. I think it'll just a comfy enough 2-0. Comfy enough 2-0.
Something of 2-0. And what do you reckon about scorers? Who do you think is
going to I'm going to think Ayeti's got to keep it going, and I'll give one to Rogic. I think he's
due.
Got it in him. He's due.
He's due. I was going to be a little bit more maybe
mental,
disrespectful to. I think there's enough about us to put another 5 by Livingston.
I love it.
I think Ayeti would personally have got a couple. Yotta's first goal. Rogic, Turnbull. I mean, you could name a number of guys who potentially score. But I think it's going to be another quick 3 points. No offence to any Livingston fans that happen to pick this up. I know a few myself that might be listening, but you're going to get gubbed. I hope that doesn't come back to bite me.
No.
But no, Franny, thanks for jumping on with me. I know everybody else has been busy, and there's a lot going on at the minute, so trying to get everybody on a steady schedule and getting people on is difficult, but you're always on hand, so I appreciate that. Again, Stephen, good luck with the move, mate, and getting everything else sorted.
Yeah.
I know that can be a big transitional period, especially with you moving over for Northern Ireland. So
seems like everybody's doing that, because I think is Anthony no moving house as well or something.
I
think
think
that's what
he
that's how
did,
he's
actually.
struggling to make it. Ross is actually by the way, see Ross's house. Don't know why we're talking about this in the podcast. I'll shut up.
No, you're right though. It's everybody's got house with. You know got stuff going on as well.
Well, I'm actually waiting on Ross coming to paint it, but he's got a lot on now. With his house. He's got walls and all that knocked down in his house.
I think,
Just tuned into the Endless Celts podcast here, no Granted.
The Endless Decorating Podcast. And Willie as well, mate. I know that you're feeling a bit poorly. I hope that you get better soon, mate. But Franny, thanks again, mate, for coming on. It's been good chatting to you. Despite the result, it's always good to come on here and talk about Celtic as we always do. To everybody that's listening, thanks again for everybody's support, continued support, all the new subscribers and everybody else that's checking it out. And again, if you're listening on YouTube, get involved in the comments, just get involved in the conversation, leave your thoughts on the match, the upcoming game against Livingston, whatever else, we'll get involved. We like sort of chatting to you guys. And I'm not going to bother with the sort of Stephen-esque outro because I always make an ass of it. But a big thank you again to everybody that's checking us out, and we'll speak to you soon. Hail, hail.